I am Komla Adum. Now, today marks the 55th anniversary of the African Union. The theme for today's commemoration is Winning the Fight Against Corruption, a Sustainable Path to Africa's Transformation. What is the biggest problem on the continent and how can they be resolved? Is corruption a product of the governance systems? Well, Dr. David Percy is a political activist and agribusiness consultant. Docs, thanks for joining us this morning on the show.
My pleasure.
Well, let's start with your thoughts on whether after 55 years, the African Union project has lived up to expectations.
That's a difficult one to answer. It depends on what you mean by expectations.
Okay.
The African peoples are bound together by a common history.
Okay.
Of colonial enslavement, exploitation, unequal exchange,
okay,
which has marked, our development, but retarded our development and lies at the root of the many problems we see on the continent.
Okay.
And so without an understanding of this commonality, it is difficult to speak about what the expectations were and are. Okay. Now, the most important thing for African peoples is to take charge of their lives.
Okay.
To have their lives back, if you wish. But any attempt to do so without an understanding of the root causes of the problems on the continent is bound to fail.
Okay.
Okay. And I noticed that you say that the theme of this year's celebration is the issue of corruption.
Corruption, yes.
Okay.
Winning the fight against corruption.
Okay. I think corruption is an important problem.
Okay.
But it is important to understand that corruption is also a secondary problem.
Okay.
That is, it arises out of, or it's a symptom of a deeper malaise. And maybe I may illustrate by making a reference to, say, malaria. I think there's no adult Ghanaian who can say that he's not gone through a bout of malaria.
Yeah.
Okay. When you have malaria, you may have fever, you may have aches, bodily pains, nausea, diarrhea, sometimes, vomiting. All those things symptoms are attendant symptoms of malaria. Okay. You can deal with each of those symptoms, but without tackling the root cause,
okay,
you're going nowhere fast.
Great. Well, that brings me to my next question. What would you say has been our biggest problem as a continent?
Our biggest problem is recognizing the path that has brought us to where we are.
Okay.
Okay. And the recognition that we need to overcome that. Okay. Now we are dependent, now neo-colonized people. We must take charge of our affairs, we must take charge of our agenda. We must set our course.
Okay.
Okay. It requires self-belief. It requires self-confidence and faith in ourselves. Now, working together, we can overcome this common history and its debilitating effects.
Okay.
Okay. Now, the path to that, the instrument to that, lies through our politics. Okay. And by and large, if one is to make an observation about politics, not just in Ghana, but in the continent. You could say that our politics is by and large dysfunctional.
Okay. So how do we fix
Good.
the dysfunctional
Good.
system?
Good. And I'm starting from the issue of corruption,
Yeah.
because it has become the number one buzzword, so to speak. There's a complete industry talking about corruption and purporting to address it.
Okay.
Okay. Now, corruption basically is the abuse of power for personal gain. Now, this very moment, there are many hundreds of thousands of instances where power is being used right now. From the porter at the trotro station, right up to the president, at all levels of society. Power is used routinely.
Okay.
To determine where you sit, whether your kid gets admission to secondary school of his choice or her choice, whether you get a contract or not. Okay. Now, it would appear that the political economic path the African nations have taken is the path of capitalist development.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And these days, it is not sung so much, maybe because it's become an acceptable part of our political economy. But in the past, you often hear people say that the private sector is the engine
Of growth and development.
Okay. And the unwritten rule is that public officers are to use their functions, their positions, to promote private enterprise, private sector growth. That is the profiting of a few at the expense of many.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay? Now, so this is just basically a common sense approach to the issue. So you have the assemblyman. No, let's even take the district chief executive.
Okay.
Okay. By whose very act, signing a document, confers huge opportunities and potential riches on a contractor. He's poorly paid. He has worries about his future when he leaves his post. By the mere use of his the power that's granted him, he can make somebody a millionaire.
True.
But this is the injunction on him. Our whole political economy is shaped around this fraudulent concept.
Okay.
That public officials should facilitate the acquisition of wealth by a few through the exploitation of the many.
Okay.
And you're saying that he should sign off and make people wealthy and not claim off part of that.
Well, that brings me to the next question. Let's examine the theme for this year's celebration specifically, which is reducing corruption. Organizers think...
So the point I'm making is that taking the path of transformation that we've taken, which is the path of capitalist development, it is fraudulent to talk about dealing with corruption.
Okay. So what do you reckon should change? Does it have to do with our mindset?
No, it has nothing to do with our mindset, quote unquote.
Okay.
It has to do with a political economic model that we are following. Right?
Okay.
Where common problems will only be addressed if a few people can profit from it.
Okay.
There are many possible solutions to it. For instance, I could take the problem of unemployment, say,
Okay.
which has been front and center of our politics for a while. Now, and maybe even point to the one of the quote-unquote flagship programs of the current government.
Okay.
Is it one district, one factory?
Yeah.
Okay.
One district, one factory.
Which appears to rest on the principle that, quote-unquote, investors. And in our country, when we speak about investors, they are seen as foreigners, preferably white people, okay, will come into a district and take advantage of opportunities and create wealth for themselves, and hopefully some of it will trickle down to the many who are going to be involved in it.
Well, which institutions or group of individuals do you reckon can kickstart this shift, move away from this kind of political economy that we're practicing now?
Is that politics?
So who are those two?
So the point I'm making is that this is a wrong path to take.
Okay.
Okay? So change the politics.
Okay. How will we get that done?
Our politics must be collectivist.
Okay.
It must be inclusive. You're talking about socially owned solutions to our collective problems.
Okay.
Okay? Away from this failing model of private solutions to common problems.
Okay.
That approach has never addressed any social problem. No one. Not the problem with employment, not the problem with education, not the problem with health, not the problem with housing. Not one. And it cannot. Because by its very logic, okay, it requires the exploitation of the many to make a few people rich and happy. It cannot address any of the problems that we see before us.
Okay, now,
I'm saying that if you look at the African continent, practically all the countries are following this
same
failed path.
Okay.
So the problem is the path of transformation that we are following, quote unquote.
Okay.
Okay. And the point I'm also making is that corruption is a symptom of that. It's a byproduct. It shadows every use of power. It's abuse of power. It shadows every use of power. How do you take away the shadows? By having light all around. So you need transparency.
Okay.
People need to know the standards of performance.
Okay.
Okay. Regular accounting by public officials. And above all, the power of recall.
Okay.
Of public officials by their various publics.
It's an interesting point you make.
Yes. That is, you are put to a public position. You may abuse it, maybe unknowingly. Okay. Not with any ill intention.
Yeah.
But may also do so regularly, purposively. Who can tell that? It's the public you serve. They should be able to make an assessment of your suitability for the post you occupy periodically. From dog catcher to assemblyman to district chief executive to MD of a public utility, all the way to the president. Because with the president, you have the power of recall. at elections. You could say that. Okay. But it should also be possible to initiate a process of recall before you served out your term for any public official, from district magistrate to a justice of the Court of Appeal, whatever, wherever. Because the public you serve are the best persons to testify to whether you're employing the authority, the power that has been assigned to you for the public good, or whether you're using it to line your pockets.
I don't know what role young people or the youth can play in fixing this, to get a transparency,
well,
to get a standard.
The youth are the most energetic, the most vibrant sections of any society. But the future belongs to them. But the present also belongs to them. Okay? Without the power of the youth, without their understanding and recognition that the primary ailment lies in a political economic model that we are trying to implement, and the politics that drives it, we're not getting out of this bad situation. Okay? And by politics, I'm talking about the use of power, decision making, on the allocation of resources, on who gets what. That's what politics is. But it attends every aspect of our social life. Whether you get housed, whether you get fed today, whether you have a school to attend, whether you can afford to attend, whether you have a job. Okay. So any attempt to address these problems without an understanding that the politics lies at the root of it, that we must get the politics right, is bound to fail.
Okay, Doc, before I let you go, what would you say in conclusion as we commemorate 55 years of the African Union?
Well, I'll say that looking across the continent, surveying the continent, we've all become hostage to this failing path of political economy. That's the capitalist development. In our case, we are even talking about dependent capitalist development, at the fringes of the global economy. So it requires understanding in each of our African states and mobilization, principally involving the youth. Based on an understanding of this and the fact that if we follow this path, things can only get worse, not better. And that it is possible to take our lives into our hands, to take our future into our hands, based on this understanding. And through mobilization, through solidarity, to address the common problems that we face. And that private solutions can never and will never work. They're not designed to help the many.
Many thanks to you, Doc. Dr. David Percy is a socialist and a student of history and politics, giving us some perspective.
That one.
Yes, I had to add it. Giving us some perspectives as we mark 55 years of the African Union. This is still News Desk. Stay tuned in. We have more after this break.